my name is Jim Simpson. I live in Polson, Montana, and I'm a member of the Lake County Conservation District. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to learn more about a study that the Conservation District has been conducting. We call it the Swan Resource Management Study. I wanted to start by thanking you all for taking the time to learn more about a study we've been working on. For the last 2, maybe 3 years now, we've been working on a study that we call the Swan Resource Management Study. The study began primarily out of one concern. That concern had to do with the buildup of forest fuels on federal lands that are managed by the United States Forest Service. That they will have a significant impact on the quality of soil and water that we have here in Lake County. Another concern that came after our primary concern was an understanding that we have got a lot of really good conservation work that we'd like to be able to accomplish here in Lake County, but we just don't have the money available to do it. In managing a conservation forest that could be the end result of the study we're conducting, we would be able to develop a continuous flow of natural resource revenues that we would be able to invest in a variety of conservation work here in the county. So let me start off talking about just how we began this study. We started it, as I said, going on 3 years now, with meetings with the United States Forest Service. We described what our concerns were about forest fuels, and they actually agreed. They have the same level of concern. We asked them what we could do, how we could participate in encouraging them or in somehow proactively managing those fuels. And we found that the Forest Service's suggestions didn't provide the level of proactivity that we were looking for. We met with them 3 times. After the 3rd meeting, we decided that we would strike out on our own and look for another solution. That solution could be the establishment of a 95,000 acre conservation forest, again on federal lands, currently managed by the United States Forest Service, all of those lands being here in Lake County. After we had consulted with the Forest Service, we decided that we needed to come up with some logical, reasonable model on how we would go about managing those lands. So we consulted the State of Montana Forestry Division. They provided us with actually quite a bit of encouragement in the form of laws that are in place that could allow them to become managers of that 95,000 acre forest for the Lake County Conservation District. We also consulted an attorney. We wanted to make sure that regardless of what we put together, it was legal. It was something that our Montana state laws would allow. It's something that if Congress chose to pass, they could pass it legally also. So the study at this point in time has developed what we consider to be a legal and workable method for establishing what we're calling a conservation forest. The conservation forest, again, would be made up of federal lands currently managed by the United States Forest Service. Those lands are all in Lake County. About 95,000 acres of those lands are in the Swan. There's a little bit of property owned by the federal government and managed by the Forest Service above Lake Mary Ronan, but that's inconsequential to the land that is in the Swan. So let me talk about key aspects to the study that we've completed to date. Number 1 is the Lake County Conservation District would assume responsibility for managing those lands. The management of those lands would not be perpetual. We would propose that there be a reasonable period of time that we're allotted to manage those lands. And we think right now the best number to settle on is about the length of time it takes a forest to mature, which is about 100 years. Another key aspect to the study that we've completed and the model that we have to date is that those lands, rather than being managed under federal laws, rules, and regulations, they instead be managed under the laws, rules, and regulations that the state of Montana uses in managing their own state forest lands here. The state of Montana has been an active manager of well over 600,000 acres of forest lands for decades. Their ability to get work done on the ground in a proactive and profitable way has been unimpeded for that length of time. whereas the United States Forest Service ability to get projects done on the ground has deteriorated significantly over the last 30 to 40 years. Another key part of this is that we would collaborate with the State of Montana Forestry Division to manage these lands. We think it's essential that we have a professional, experienced, and expert group of forest managers responsible for managing this very complex set of organisms and dynamics that exist in the ecosystem that we're talking about in the Swan. We would propose that the Forestry Division, working for the state of Montana, make all natural resource decisions on those lands. In other words, the Conservation District would be out of the day-to-day operational aspects of managing those lands. And the last point that I want to make in this study is that we felt it was important that as we manage those lands, the management of those lands pay for themselves. So the state of Montana costs of managing those lands would be fully compensated by the harvest and sale of trees from those lands. Now that's just not the cost of the people that are on the ground. It also includes planting, thinning, water quality management, threatened endangered species management, visual management, managing all aspects of the land. That would be paid for with the revenue generated from selling timber, and there's still money left over. So the Lake County Conservation District, as we move through this, we'd like to be able to provide some guidance to the State of Montana Forestry Division on just how they should be managing these lands without telling them specifically what they need to do. And I'd like to have a chance to run through those focal points with you. Well, first and foremost would be wise management of all aspects of the resource, not just timber, not just fuels, but whether it's organic or inorganic, whether it's a threatened endangered species, whether it's a non-threatened species, whether it's a water resource, whether it's a visual resource. We want all aspects of that 95,000 acre conservation forest managed wisely. We would also ask them to focus on reducing extreme fire hazard. Now the reason that we have a high level of concern about fire hazard in the Swan is manifold, but it is also congruent and supportive of our legislative mandate to wisely manage resources so that it does not degrade, their management practices do not degrade water quality or soil quality. We are concerned about those fuel buildups in the Swan because not if, but when those fuels burn, that they would have a significant impact on water and soil quality. We would also like to have the Forestry Division focus on sustainably managing a renewable resource, that is the forest or the trees on that landmass. We would also ask the state of Montana that over time, over that 100-year period, is to begin building in drought tolerance for those forests. We understand that the climate is changing for a variety of reasons. And as that climate changes, we still like to see a forest in the Swan, but in doing so, we feel that we need to be thinking about what that forest is going to look like and how it's going to stand the change in climate that we have in the future. And then lastly, we'd like to be able to generate an income. That is a stream of renewable resource revenues that allow us to very proactively then manage conservation work in the remainder of the county. So let me give you a couple of examples of what those conservation projects might be in Lake County. Well, the first one that I like to talk about is septic tanks. We understand that there are some septic tanks and drain fields here in Lake County that are old technology, and they are contributing pollutants to our groundwater and sometimes surface water resources. We'd like to create a cost share program with those conservation dollars that we generate from managing the conservation forest, so that landowners that choose to participate can get a substantial sum of money to upgrade their septic tank and drain field to the best known technology. We'd also like to provide programs on a voluntary basis again to our agricultural community. The irrigators in our district often are using, again, older technology to water the crops that they're growing. We'd like to provide them with new technology that would allow them to apply the right amount of water at the right time to a specific crop that would eventually result in higher crop yields as well as reduced water usage. We'd also like to help them improve their practices around managing the fertilizer applications that they apply to their crops. We're particularly concerned about those fertilizers being over-applied and that application then running into either our groundwater or our surface water resources. We'd also like to participate in controlling the dust that we have on our dirt roads in the county. Here in Lake County we have miles and miles and miles of dirt roads. Dirt roads that during the summertime you can see a pickup truck or a car coming from miles away. That's a form of dust erosion. We'd like to be able to provide conservation dollars to mitigate that form of erosion. And the last point I'd like to talk about is where could the revenue that we derive from managing a conservation forest be invested? In other words, what lands in Lake County can we invest that money in? Well, the answer is all lands. It doesn't matter if it's Forest Service, state, tribal, or private lands. We can invest that money. We've determined through a fairly rigorous process that we should have, on a conservative basis, about $300,000 a year for 100 years to invest in these conservation projects that I just outlined. Well, lastly, I'd like to thank you one more time for taking the time to watch this presentation. And I'd ask you to do one thing. That one thing would be to visit our website, find the survey on the website. It's a one-question survey. It's very quick and easy to fill out, and complete that survey. That will help us decide whether or not we are investing our Lake County taxpayer dollars wisely in this study, or if we should discontinue the study. I'd like to leave you with one last thought. It's something that conservation districts believe in strongly, and that is, if you take care of your natural resources will take care of you. Thank you very much.